Before convicting someone of committing a crime, investigators take the time to do something called CSP, also known as crime scene processing, which the correct authorities come together to crack a code of a certain case, looking for certain characteristics and patterns that stand out to make the conviction easier to match to a person of a specific crime. In terms of when this process is a plan of action for a case, this is usually starting with a 911 call at the time of the crime. 911 questions and oversees the situation and calls any other authorities that they think should be present and involved in this process, with that authorities like crime scene investigators will begin taking action by taking photographs of the particular location of the crime, blood stains, patterns, and collecting any other possible evidence that might help them crack the code of a case. As for where a crime is located can vary depending on the circumstance of when the suspect is confident in the fact that he, she, or they might think they are less likely to get caught and more likely to have the crime be a success. In terms of the best place to go over evidence and findings of authorities would be a lab, because scientists can get a more accurate representation of what actually happened. Some things to help convict a person of a crime is class and individual evidence. Here are some things that they look for in class and individual evidence. Hair of victim or suspect, glass fragments near body or crime, fibers on clothing on victim or suspect on day of the crime. Here are some individual evidence to look for. Handwriting analysis to look at any handwritten notes or clues left at the crime to trace who did it. Voice analysis to maybe listen to a person's attitude towards the suspect and victim's back and forth conversation before the murder is acted upon. And DNA can easily trace back to the victim's kill strategies using certain methods like gel electrophoresis.
For this case, there are 8 bloodstains at the crime scene: the rake, handle, and comb, victim's head and hand, the drops on the blood on the floor, flower pot, wall/ceiling, and the watering can. The first step is to identify the type of blood spatter. First is transfer. Next, we have cast off from an object due to force. Then we have a swipe, also due to an additional force. Then we have passive drops made from gravity. Next, we look at blood type using a dish like this. First, we add the same blood sample to each base, add anti-A, then anti-B, and then anti-RH. Next, we check for agglutination, aka clumping. You can see that A is clumped, so did B because it is not see-through. But RH did not clump, meaning that this blood is AB negative. The only blood from the crime scene that was a possible source was Olivia's, James, and Dee. For blood, this does not place Kenny nor Frank at the crime scene.
This is sample A. Sample A is imbricate with no medulla, and it is a match to Olivia Long. Sample B is multiserial with continuous medulla, and it is animal hair, therefore no match. Sample C is coronal with no medulla, and is a match to James Herman. Sample D is imbricate with intermittent medulla, which is a match to D. Flowers. First found on the rake, James's left thumb fingerprint was found. Then, on the mug, James's left index was found. On the door, Frank's right middle finger was found. On the watering can, Dee's left index was found. A second print on the mug was found, and that it was Olivia's right index finger. On the counter, Olivia's left middle finger was also found. And then on the flower pot and the door, there was Dee's right index finger on both of those. Finding Frank and Dee's fingerprints at the scene of the crime corroborates the story that they were at the house the day before working. What is suspicious is that James's fingerprints were found on the mug that Olivia was drinking out of, and also on the rake that hit Olivia on the head.
DNA evidence for the murder of Olivia Long. In the first electrophoresis table, tests for identifying blood under the victim's fingernails, the passive spatter on the ground, and the blood on the flower pot. This evidence exempts Kenny DeWitt and Frank Flowers from the murder because no DNA matches were made to any of them. However, James Herman's DNA has been found under the victim's fingernails and on the passive ground spatter. And Dee Flowers' DNA was found on the flower pot. This corroborates Dee's earlier statement that she cut herself on the branch the day prior while working in the garden. This puts James Herman's blood at the crime scene in incriminating circumstances. The second electrophoresis test further establishes James Herman as the murderer because his DNA is found on the handle of the rake, the murder weapon. It also establishes the motives for James Herman to commit the murder because the father of Olivia Long's unborn child is Frank Flowers. Finally, while not directly DNA evidence, 3 teeth were found on the kitchen counter at this crime scene. They are a match for James Herman, who is missing 3 teeth.
Morning, Olivia wakes up and makes her cup of coffee. As she walks away, James slips in cyanide and stirs it in and waits for her to drink it. James confronts her, saying he poisoned her and that he knows about the affair with Frank. They fight. She knocks out his teeth and scratches him. He hits her on the head with the rake. As she's falling, her hand and blood gets on the door. In death, he puts a die sign to frame Frank.